process, and it may be a mechanical device, it may be a substance produced by manufacturer, maybe a machine or a method of manufacture. So we should know what to protect under which classification. So let's talk about life sciences. So the first life science patent was given to Professor Anand Mohan Chakrabarti from General Electric Company. He developed a bacterium, a genetically modified bacterium, Pseudomonas putida, which was capable of breaking crude oil. Now,
Farah, the slide has not moved further after agenda.
Oh my God.
I think Professor Priya or somebody has to help us out. Looks like some sharing problem.
So this is a problem, I think, from their side.
I've seen your deck. It's such a lovely, colorful one, and I'm sure the audience will enjoy if the slides run.
Can somebody help with this?
Yeah, I've informed Professor Priya again. So college team may kindly look into this, please. You have put it on slideshow, right, Farah?
Yeah, it is on slideshow.
And you are moving it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a problem with the access sharing.
Yeah, they have not given access. That's why.
That's why I requested to make me also co-host.
Yeah, so if they make us host, then we can share.
Yeah. So college team, someone please. Okay, Farah, you continue. I'll talk to Priya again, Professor Priya.
Okay, now it's not allowing me to share anything actually. I'll just see.
Yeah, ma'am, we are doing it.
Okay.
We are trying to share, ma'am.
So if you have my PPT, you can just open it and.
Yeah, ma'am, we are doing it, ma'am. Screen share.
All right, please put on the slideshow and go to the fifth slide or something.
Fifth.
Okay, and do a slideshow.
Ma'am, you can see, no, ma'am?
Yeah, I can see that. And you can do a slideshow.
Slideshow.
Yes, ma'am.
Next.
At the bottom, you'll have that show sign. You have sorter, and then you have that. Yeah. So
Now it's okay, ma'am?
yeah, I can see that. So
Okay.
Please go to the next one. Yeah, go ahead. Change it to the next one. Go to the next. It's static there also.
Next.
Okay. All right, it's moving now. And all right. So these are the acts we were talking about. the different acts that are there in the Indian acts. Next one. Okay, so the idea is to benefit the society by rewarding intellectual creativity. Next one. Just keep moving. Yeah, so we have, all right, uh, here, okay. Go slow from here. So we have these criteria of novel, distinct, uniform, and stable varieties which can be protected. And you can have patents in US but not in India. Okay, so next slide, please. Go ahead. So these are the criteria: novelty, innovativeness, and utility. And patents are very strong, but difficult to obtain. So we have other intellectual property rights which we can use, and we can easily get and maintain them. Next one. So you can have a patent over any machine or a substance like DDT. Go ahead.
Next.
Okay, so I was talking about how to patent life. So this is for mostly for biological sciences, that the first patent given was on a bacterium called Pseudomonas fugita, which was capable of breaking down crude oil. So when there is an oil spill on the sea or a water body, so initially this was rejected, but then they went to the Supreme Court. So this case is, Diamond is the Commissioner of Patents, and Dr. Chakrabarti was the inventor. So they went to the Supreme Court. Next slide, please. So the Supreme Court said anything which is made by man can be patentable, which is not just isolation. So the process of isolation of a microorganism, then defining its properties and its capabilities to do a certain action like clearing an oil spill. Okay, so ultimately the patent was granted in 1981. Since then, over the years, the definitions and the scope have changed, evolved, and it is highly debatable. And there are guidelines which keep changing, and we have to go by the case law, case by case. Next slide. So you cannot patent anything and everything under the sun. There are rules depending on your territory. So in India, you cannot have these things like inventions in atomic energy or defense related. You cannot patent that. And then again, morally objectionable things like human cloning or terminated technology or oncomouse.
Is it audible?
So the oncomouse is an animal which will respond to cancer-related research. So in European Union and in US, it is allowed to patent, but not in India. So territory-wise, country to country, it varies. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. All right. So the Indian Patent Act defines what you can patent and what you cannot. So it says essentially biological processes you cannot patent, but microorganisms can be patented. They made an exception for the BT cotton. So we'll discuss more on that. So these are the just concepts that I'm trying to give you. So as a consumer, when you go to the market, what are the factors you consider when you are buying something? Basically, the brand, which is a legal thing. Again, a brand is a trademark. Next slide. So the brand is for the purpose of creating value and identity. In a whole marketplace, you will go and choose your brand. So which is a trademark, which is an IP, and it's easier to obtain and easier to maintain. So you can have a trademark about your college logo also. Next one. So it's basically a sign or a visual symbol. So you can have it for a good or a service, like Air India is a service mark, and so on and so forth. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So the brands, when you see the penguin, you know it's a book. You see a watch, it will be a Swiss watch. You can see that. So these are the brands which give recognition to a product, and there is a trust factor built between the consumer and the brand. Next one. So these are the multi-billion brands. You all use it every day. Next one. Yeah, next slide. So, as a consumer, we are also eating things which are derived from biological resources, and most importantly, our food and our spices. So, how do you ensure that whatever you're eating is safe to eat? So, you will put a mark on it, and you'll know that, oh yes, this is safe to eat. Next slide, please. Yeah. So when you see a product, you will go and check the labels. So you will see whether it is adhering to the international standards. So we'll say certified sustainable seafood. Why is sustainability important? Because you should not overfish. Then we see the FSSAI mark. We know that this is safe food because it has gone through a process and it has a certification. Then if you take a medicine, if it's coming from a GMP, Good Manufacturing Practice Laboratory, so these are marks which are certification marks. These are kind of a trademark. So you know that the consumer is happy that he's taking something which is safe. Next slide, please. So we are also a society who's very environmentally friendly now. We are trying to sustain our environment and our agricultural and agroclimatic systems. So we'll see that whether it is certified humane, no child use. So these are different labels that you see on your food packets, and you'll decide whether you want to use it or not. So it's the customer discretion. Next slide. So you want to eat organic, so that's your choice, that's available in the market, and you'll go for that. So trademarks will facilitate consumer discretion, and your food which is coming from different sources, if you have these marks on them, you will be able to discriminate and decide which one you want to choose. Next one. Okay, then there are collective marks. Say Amul is a cooperative or a wool mark. So you know that this product is coming from an animal germplasm resource, which is a pure wool, or a silk mark on your saris, which are pure silk, which is again an animal product, which is silk worms are animals, and there is an animal husbandry, which is also an example of biodiversity. So these are collective marks. Next one. Okay. So we talked about the drugs which are FDA approved or the FPO mark. So this gives the confidence to the consumer that these are safe things to have. Next one. So these are the top 10 brands in the world according to different criteria. So you have your Disney and you have Facebook and Coca-Cola and so on and so forth. Next one. Next. So when you have a brand, you'll strengthen it through industrial designs. So the designs are something which the customer is directly seeing on a product. So it is the aesthetic aspect. So we don't want people to copy and fool our consumers. So we'll put an industrial design. So this is another very important product for all mass-produced things like your bottles and stuff, which are industrially produced. So application is this particular IP tool is for industrial production, mass production. Next one. So when you see the Toblerone, you know that those are the mountains of Switzerland. That's what it is representing, each triangle, or your bottles. So you will be sure that this is a bottle from a particular company that you trust. So there is a branding and there is an industrial design which ensures the customer. So these are easy to get marks and you can follow them. Next one. So these are applicable to anything, whatever you can use. So this is a greenhouse design or aquaponics. Next one, please. Next slide. So you can have a design patent in US. In India, you'll have to do industrial design, IP, and these are the way we brand things nowadays, in a very high-tech manner. Next one. The other IP tool is trade secrets. So these are confidential information. For example, Coca-Cola or the Mac sauce or the KFC chicken spice mix. These are all trade secrets, which is also an IP. Next one. Then integrated circuit designs is a separate IP tool and applicable to the IT industry. Next one. Next slide. So now let's come to the IP tool, which is directly related to biodiversity, which is plant variety protection, which is basically plant breeders' right. And again, we said the criteria is novelty, distinctness, uniformity, and stability of that particular plant bred variety. Next one. So we have a authority. If you go to this page, you can see that they will facilitate registration of any varieties which are developed either by the plant breeders or by farmers. Next slide. So they have a mandate to encourage the development of new varieties of plants, and even the farmers are recognized by awards, and they are the custodians of the germplasm that we have. For thousands of years, agriculture has developed for the last 7,000 years by farmers. So we have a mandate to recognize them. Next one. So let's talk specifically about biological diversity. What is biological diversity? I have shown you IP tools which relate to the natural resource. So we live in an ecosystem along with other animals and plants. So let's talk about biological diversity. Next one. Next slide. Yeah. So it is the variability among living organisms, and it talks about all kinds of ecosystems and ecological complexes, and this diversity within species shows that how resilient is an ecosystem to changes. So if something happens, there should be enough variability that something will survive. So you know that dinosaurs got extinct because of one particular meteor that came and hit, but something survived. Most of the 90% of the life was gone, but 10% survived. So variability is very important, and we derive all these natural resources and create products for our civilization. Next slide, please. So this is agricultural biodiversity. You can appreciate different kinds of tomatoes, different kinds of chilies and pumpkins, but the basic thing is all these have been carefully selected and bred and nurtured by mankind since thousands of years. So agriculture was the first thing that allowed us to settle down into villages and cities and create a civilization that we have today. So these different varieties of things are a source for trait, a pest resistance or a disease resistance, higher shelf life, nutrients that we can pick and choose from. So we have to conserve this biodiversity that we have. Next one. So we have a body called the Convention on Biological Diversity, a worldwide body, and we are a part of that. So India has a Diversity Act. It's about conservation of biological diversity and sustainable use of its components. So most important is, if you have a resource, is it being fairly used, and are the people who are custodians able to use it properly? And the benefits are shared. Next one. So there are economic, social, and environmental factors that we have to consider. And only after balancing all this, we can have something which is sustainable. And we have to sustain our environment. We have to live lives which are worth and reduce poverty. So we should be capable of understanding what is the climate change, what is sustainability, and how to keep that sustainability going. Next one. Okay, so if you go to a geographical area and you want to take any material, you have to take permission. And if the material is useful for you, you will ask for technology transfer. At that point, there has to be prior informed consent from people, and there should be legal frameworks. If you want to go and search for biologically active plants and animals, you have to go and take permission. And whatever the intellectual property comes from that, you will have to go through the process and protect it. Next slide. So to access, you have to go through the system, go through the National Biodiversity Authority, which is the focal point, to the communities, and you may or may not be given permission. So, but if you are given permission, the biological resource utilization can happen, and then you can generate revenue out of that. When you generate revenue, you'll have to share it with the local community, government, and the researcher. So the thing is, there is a benefit sharing aspect to it. So the society gets benefited, and you know how this particular thing came from, where it came from. So there will be traceability, which is very important. Okay, next slide. So anything which is occurring within the geography of India is a sovereign right of India. And if you misappropriate, it will be considered biopiracy. We have to create people's biodiversity registers because we need to sustainably utilize our uh, whatever is given by nature. And then,
Biological Diversity Act ನಿಮಗಿದೆಯಾ?
yes, okay. So now, how to sustain,
Biological.
use it sustainably, and share the benefits. So all these things where there is a biological component and there is a traditional knowledge component, it has to go together, and people should be benefited by the commercial utilization. Next one. So this is the National Biodiversity Authority, and there are state biodiversity boards which have management committees at the block level down to the village, and it will have a people's biodiversity register which will have all the information about the biological resources down to the village municipality level. So if we are aware, we'll be able to sustain our utility of biological material in a systematic manner. Next one, next slide. So there are state biodiversity boards, and they will declare biodiversity heritage sites, and committees will be able to manage. They'll create committees at the local level because this is a democracy. So in a democratic manner, it will be done. So they will also create a fund where people can pay and the communities will benefit. So that's how the benefit sharing will happen. So these are different biodiversity boards. The Karnataka Biodiversity Board you can see, and then there is West Bengal Biodiversity Board, and so on. Next slide. So if you see the map here, you can see those biodiversity hotspots, because those are specific areas where there are species which are found nowhere else in the world. We need to sustain and conserve those because they are threatened by the loss of habitat and mostly human activities. So poaching and getting into a conserved area is not preferable because the traditional knowledge will be lost. And then we have people living there, the communities which live in the forest. They have different kinds of cultures which are called traditional cultural expressions, which is accepted as a community right. Okay, next one. So this is the Nallur Tamarind Grove in Devanhalli in Bangalore, which is considered as a biodiversity heritage site. So if we are aware, we'll be able to contribute towards the conservation of these sites. Next slide. So this is GKVK campus. You can see that the medicinal plants garden is a conserved biodiversity heritage zone, and we need to conserve that. So if we are aware, we'll be able to, as a community, contribute towards the sustenance and the conservation of these heritage zones. Next one. So the idea is to conserve the indigenous knowledge and sustainably develop it. And biological, ethnic, and cultural diversity has to be respected. And then if any benefits come out of the biological resource, it should be shared. So there has to be a democratic participation by the society, and we should be a part of conserving our traditional knowledge. Next one. So this is the process of application, and people can go through the process and apply for the from NBA. Okay, next one, please. So since we live in a globalized world, we should be compliant with an internationally regulatory framework. So this framework is to facilitate at an international level. If you have developed something in India, you can go to the national level and international level also to file your IP. So there is a system and we should be aware of it. Next slide. So there are international guidelines, and WTO and UN bodies are all associated with it, and they will establish unambiguous IP rights so that the benefits can be shared between the people who were custodians of the biodiversity related resource and people who are utilizing it. Next, please. So the WTO and the UN system will work together, and they will see that the development does not impact the livelihoods of traditional communities. We actually have to support them and conserve their natural resources, and their food security should not be lost. So everything should work together for the benefit of the society. Next one. So there are international conventions, and there are declaration on rights of indigenous people. So there's an intergovernmental committee on plant genetic resources, animal genetic resources. Next slide. So these are the bodies. If you see WTO on one side, trade-related intellectual properties, and agriculture-related Doha Declaration, then there are World Intellectual Property Organization with PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty, and UN has the Food and Agriculture Organization, ITPGR, and UPO is for plant breeders' right. Then there's environmental and CBD. So all these work together to create this system. Next one. So this is the Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. So again, compliance is there has to be according to the international standards for the benefit of all. Next one. So this is for animal genetic resources. So all these things are in place. Next slide. So these are protocols. So they talk about handling of living modified organisms or genetically modified organisms. That is the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety. And again, access through Nagoya Protocol, which says that if you use the resource, share the benefits and how to go about it. These are the frameworks. Next one.
Questions?
So India has also created a recombinant DNA technology regulatory framework, and you know that there's a genetic engineering approval committee and recombinant DNA safety guidelines are given. So if you create a GMO, you have to go through this whole process in India also. Next one. So then there is the question of biopiracy. So what is biopiracy? Basically exploitation of a genetic resource and associated traditional knowledge without the approval of the holders and without adequate compensation. So when we talk about access and benefit sharing, we should know that we should not be using something without approval. So you have to go to the National Biodiversity Authority and to the community to access. So I'll give examples. Next one. So this turmeric patent was filed by at US Patent Office in 1995, and it was granted. So it claimed a method of promoting healing of wound by administering turmeric. This is a well-known practice in India. So then in 1996, CSIR went and fought the case, and the patent was revoked because we provided enough literature and ancient manuscript that this is a well-known, there's a prior art, and the patent is not valid. So it was revoked on the basis of lack of novelty because the wound healing properties are well known in India and we have been using it for centuries. Next slide, please. So the other case was on basmati. So there was a company called Tech in Texas, US. So they created a basmati-like rice variety. They developed it through breeding, and they said the grain characteristics are identical to basmati, and they named it Texmati, which is a misnomer because it will confuse the consumer whether it is actual basmati or something else. So this was a violation of a fundamental act that this particular long grain rice is grown only in the foothills of Himalaya, and this is a well-known product. It has a history and a reputation. So again, we had to go and fight the case. Next slide, please. So there are three things here. There's a theft of collective intellectual and biodiversity heritage. The traders and exporters will lose their revenue, and the consumer will be fooled. So this is a biopiracy example, which should not have happened. So next one. So India challenged it, and again they said that this particular basmati name is an appellation which is for the Indian subcontinent because this occurs only in sub-Himalayan regions. So then they narrowed the claim to the starch content and all that, but they didn't give the name, and the trade name was also not allowed. So this is how we have to fight for our traditional knowledge and our products, which are we are supposed to be custodians of. Otherwise, we'll lose revenue. Next one. This is the case of Arogya Pacha, which is a very interesting case. And this particular herb is found in the Agastya Hills in Kerala. So one team from All India Coordinated Research Project on Ethnobiology, they went together in the forest for research, and they saw that these tribal people were eating something, and they were getting rejuvenated. So they further inquired. And next slide, please. This plant has immunoenhancing and antifatigue properties. So they took it from there, and then they developed a market product, which is Jeevani. So from the traditional knowledge, they came to a product. Okay, next one. So this is a lesson that you can develop something from the biodiversity resources, use it and create a product. It's not a great success story, but it's a learning experience how to develop something in this manner. So there's an association between a government body and a community, and it was worth a learning experience. So we can learn from that and apply it to other products. Next one. So when we talk about biotechnology products, and Bolgard is something which I was working on. This is a insect resistance cotton. So this cotton had a gene from a bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis, and this allowed killing of Lepidopterous pests, which is the moths and butterflies. So there are a lot of pests, but the ones which were killed by the Bolgard cotton, which is GM. So this particular thing is a product of a R&D out of uh, uh, germplasm in association with biotechnology, and then you create a product which is insect resistant. So this particular business is highly tech intensive. Next one, next slide. But it requires a lot of inputs. You need to have tissue culture technology. You need to have awareness of genes which confirm traits such as insect resistance or fungus resistance. You should have enabling technologies, and you should have the particular germplasm from which you can develop products. So it's a highly complex technology, and if we know how to protect it, then only we can create a product out of it. So that's the idea. Next one. So we have pharma biotech, which is highly successful, agriculture biotech, which is moderately successful. But the way forward is open, and you will see the next generation, which will be based on nanotechnology, and decision making will happen through artificial intelligence. And we have a gene editing tool now, which is called CRISPR. You can go and read about it. So these things are ongoing. Next slide, please. So we can have a lot of work going on in agriculture and food biotechnology, industrial biotechnology, then preventive medicine and pharmacogenomics. Now the whole genome has been sequenced. So all these resources can be used to develop the next generation products. Next one. So whenever we have a resource and you develop a technology through each source, uh, when we take the next step and the next step, you'll have to protect your IP, and you can see the flow of that's called the pipeline. So you start, and then you grow, then you create a product, and you create a portfolio of products. But every stage you have to create your IP. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So now this is champagne. So whenever people say champagne, you think it's a white bubbly wine. But basically, what is it? Next slide. So champagne is a region in France where they grow these grapes, which are green grapes, and they create a white wine out of it. So why is it called champagne? Because it's coming from that particular region. Next slide, please. So just like champagne, you will have Burgundy and Rhone and Cognac and Bordeaux. So all these are different regions from where the wines are coming, and their appellations of origin. Not only wine, cheese also. They have different kinds of cheese, and they are very proud about it. And these are highly priced commodities. So if we know that these are the examples where geography and the traditional knowledge of the people from that geography is utilizing that biological resource, creating something which is a wonderful commercial product. So we should also emulate that. Next slide, please. These are premium commodities. They have well documented history and reputation. So Parmigiani Reggiano and the Camembert and all these feta cheese each have a huge story which we can deal another day. Next slide. These are called geographical indications or appellations of origin or certified GI. So this is the Indian logo which says Atulya Bharat ki Amulya Nidhi. So we should be aware of what is out there and what is to be protected and be proud of that. Next one. So again, anything which is associated with a geographical location will be driven by geoclimatic factors, will have specific characteristics, quality and reputation, and there will be contribution from traditional knowledge of the people there. And it is critical to the livelihoods of communities. So all other IPs are individual or company rights, but this is a community right. A community of people can develop and be a custodian, and they will be trading these commodities. Next one. So the GI is a notice that is given that this project, the product originates in a particular geographical area, and it will be a having clear history and reputation. Then there will be registration, and they will be given a word or a mark or a figurative representation. So for example, Darjeeling tea or Nilgiri tea. So all these are GIs. Next one. So there are international conventions. We should be aware of it, and so the TRIPS say that anything which is identifying good originating in a territory, a particular region, and it has a quality, reputation, and characteristics which are attributable to a geographical origin will be a GI. So that's the definition of GI. Next one. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. So if you go and register that community mark, you will be getting a certificate for the community, and people can register. So, and people can facilitate, people can trade in it, and Prabha will explain more on this. Next one. Yeah, next. Yeah. So there are two factors, geoclimatic factors and skills, the human skills. And together they will create a product which is reputed for centuries maybe. Okay, next one. So there is a geographical contribution and there's a human contribution. So nature and human will have both balance and create a product which is a GI. Next one. So we have to work with the non-producers, which are the government organization and the NGOs who will handhold the proprietors and the producers and authorized users. So Prabha will be talking more about the authorized users. So this is how the system works, and the stakeholders are out here, the people who will produce, people who will take it for trade, and people who will handhold those people. Next one. So we have all these products, the Nanjangud banana, the Naga chili, the Guntur chili, the Alapi green cardamom, all these things are available, and the biodiversity is represented there. See, food grains or flour or juice or dairy products. So agrobiodiversity is represented as a GI product. Next one. So there's a GI Act and a Biodiversity Act. So GI Act is for the commodities, and Biodiversity Act is for the genetic resource and germplasm and benefit sharing mechanism. So these two we have to study together. Next slide. So there are different kinds of goods like agricultural, horticultural, food stuff like Dharwad peda and so on and so forth. Next one. So these are the wonderful logos of different GIs of India and GIs of Karnataka. Prabha will be speaking about. So if we know and protect, we'll be able to appreciate them. Next one. So these are again examples of GIs which are registered. Next one. So this is a huge success story. Darjeeling, the first product that was a GI from India. Next one. The coffees of India, the Monsoon Malabar, and how beautifully they are packaged. These are examples of how we can develop a product which is a GI. Next one. So these are highly priced commodities, the Peruvian wines and the Scotch whiskey of UK, so on and so forth. Next one. So the cheese and the potatoes from Idaho and the South African wines, these charge premium amount of, and they're very heavily protected, and huge commercial gains can be made from that. Next one. So I'd suggest people to go and look up this Cafe de Colombia story, how they created a coffee which is worldwide now and well branded as a GI. Next one. So we talk about French fries and all those things. So what happens is that over the years, some things can become generic and you will not be able to protect it. So there are a lot of stories. So we have to register and protect them. Otherwise, they'll become generic. Something like a French fry, it doesn't occur in France actually. It's a Belgian thing. So anything which sounds like a GI is not protected because it meets strict criteria to be protected as a GI. Next one. So this is a trademark infringement, say Starbucks. So Starbucks is your favorite cafe, but people will try to usurp it as, so this is cheating. So this has to be avoided. So any infringement happens, the person who holds the trademark or the GI has to go and fight for their rights. Next one. So we have to conserve through legislation, through community involvement, and brand and package our products and bring it to the market so that the communities are benefited. Next one. So if we create a system, utilize the system rather, and create proper labeling and branding, and create a supply chain management system, we can also charge premium for our GI products. Next one. So first is to be aware. So you can check these databases, the WIPO and the PCT system, and you will see different databases which you can be aware of. Next one. So if you go and search in the brand database with the Kit Kat, it will show you that logo, the red and white, which belongs to Nestle. So you should create something other than that. This is how people keep track of what is going on in the market. Next one. So you can read further. This is one of my articles. Next one. So thank you, and sorry about the glitch. I hope I could have presented it myself. Any questions, I'll be happy to take. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Any questions? Please let me.
So thank you so much, ma'am.
So if there are no more questions or nobody has any doubt, you can still put it in the chat box. We'll try to take it later, and I'll give it to Prabha to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Farah. I hope you'll be around until the end of this session.
Yeah, I'm there. Please go ahead, and then we'll discuss towards the end.
I think the college has structured their program in a specific manner, so not sure with this gap what they intend to do, whether they want to continue or have a break as per their agenda. I think Professor Priya, you can take a call. I'm okay. I mean, in case you want me to, get started.
Ma'am, we'll just continue, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Okay, ma'am.
So I would like to thank Dr. Farah Deepa ma'am for interesting talk. Now we have the second session by Srimati Prabhavati Rao. So now to give introduction about ma'am, Adlin from 3rd PMCs.
Good morning to one and all present. I am Adeline J of final year BSc PMCS to give a brief introduction about a resource person for today's webinar, Srimati Prabhavati Rao. She holds a master degree in economics from the Central University of Hyderabad. She also holds certifications in intellectual property, rights foundation course, the patent cooperation treaty, and more. From the World's Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, Geneva, Switzerland. She brings over 2.5 decades of career experience, her working for esteemed organizations, including the Confederation of Indian Industry, the Institute of Chartered Financial Analysts of India, among others. In her current role since the past 9 years, Madam has facilitated the intellectual property rights initiatives of the Government of Karnataka, Center for Export Promotion, namely the Vishwesvaraya Trade Promotion Center, VTPC, under the aegis of the Department of Industries and Commerce, Government of Karnataka. Madam has been closely involved in sensitization drives, training and nurturing the intellectual property fabric of various stakeholders across the state, representing the academia, industry and others. In conjugation with IP specialists in the domain, the training programs have been across varied topics in the IPR spectrum, customized to the audience needs. As a catalyst, Madam has spurned the launch of IP cells in the academic institutions. She has also been closely involved in the policy initiatives, the recent one being the geographical indications, that is GI policy for Karnataka, which was unfurled in May 2019. Karnataka is the first state in the country to come out with an exclusive GI policy to protect the traditional legacies of the state. In her career span, in the retrospect as a corporate communications professional, Madam Prabhavati Rao brings a rich blend of audio, visual, and print media experience, having authored several features, editorials, websites, resumes, organized interview sessions for the print media for leading magazines and dailies on contemporary topics. She also the recipient of Outstanding Employee Award at India's leading IT staffing company, Magna Infotech, a division of Westcott Limited. Among her soft skills, she was an audition compete for the youth channel of All India Radio, Hyderabad. During the year 1991 to 1998 period, having a broadcast and anchored live programs, produced documentaries and feature blends anchoring shows for the corporates and Doordarshan. We are indeed happy to have you amongst us, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
So I'm pleased to welcome Srimati Prabhati Rao ma'am to take over the second session.
Thank you so much, friends. And on behalf of the Government of Karnataka Center for Export Promotion, the Vishwesvaraya Trade Promotion Center, Government of Karnataka, a very warm welcome yet again to this very timely webinar, as Dr. Rekha Sethi, my good friend, also commented in the beginning of this program. True indeed. I mean, as she was saying, that as we put together the syllabus and as we try to align with contemporary trends in industry, it's very important to learn and keep ourselves abreast of what's happening around. And there are, a lot of topics which are very significant. However, it becomes very difficult for, people sitting out there to assimilate everything right at the word go. But thanks to the new education policy on one hand and the national IPR policy, which was unfurled in 2016, very happy and excited to see the trends right now, wherein I find academia in a very big way coming forward with a keen interest for IPR programs on one hand, and the launch of IP cells on the other, and the urge, I would say, to grasp new learnings in the IP space. On that note, a hearty welcome yet again to each one of you, and a special warm welcome to my very good friend and professor, Asit Mohanty, who's also joined this program. He's been my classmate from my Central University days way back in time, and incidentally a mentor of mine as well, way back. So hearty welcome to you, Professor Asit. And, my benchmark is raised higher because he's been a mentor. So you can see, how I go through now. So thank you so much for this opportunity, friends. First of all, thanks to Farah as well for setting the context in a holistic perspective and taking IP through all its various forms, whittling it down to the significance of the various IP tools, be it the patent, the copyright, the trademarks, the designs. Friends, first thing that I want to tell all of you is, let's not get into this techno jargon, and don't think that IP is only about techno-legal documents, which actually it is. Just let us try to whittle it down, demystify the whole thing. And my job out here is basically to whet your appetite and give you a flavor of the subject from where Dr. Farah left. So thanks, Farah, for that beautiful rundown. It was indeed colorful, and I'm sure the audience would have had very good takeaways. So what I'm going to do is, my dear friends, representing as I am today the government initiative, I'll run through a few slides wherein you'll get to know the organization that I represent, which is a mandated nodal agency for the promotion of international trade from the state of Karnataka. So what is it that we do, and what is the big call for entrepreneurship and exporting that we are trying to give to people, across the state, the length and breadth of the state, and of course the country. So I'll take you through a few of our key initiatives in export promotion quickly. And thereon, I'll take you through the GI bit, where I'll speak more about what are the government initiatives, what is it that we are trying to do. And let me confess, we are in the first leg of our journey, and we need more and more people like you. And you'll understand why I underline the word you, because it's people from academia whom I have associated in big numbers, and they have added to the geographical indication story. So let's see how. And let me now see whether I'm able to share my screen. Yes, so can you see my screen? If anyone can confirm.
Yeah, we can see it, Prabha.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
am I
Yes, ma'am.
audible?
We can see the slides.
Okay. So friends, welcome to Visvesvaraya Trade Promotion Center. As I said, the mandated nodal agency for the promotion of international trade. I'm not sure how many of you are aware that not many states in the country have an exclusive export promotion center. So when I say that, what I mean is, yes, exports do happen, and you know that exports is a central government subject. However, both the center and the state, they provide a lot of incentives, concessions. There are a lot of initiatives in the space which actually are spurring the ecosystem. And that's the reason why today, unlike many years ago, typically who would be an exporter? The definition. People would think it was a myth that only those who have entrenched themselves in businesses, people who are already there in industry, and now they want to foray into something different, are the guys who will do exports. No, my dear friends, I think all of you have proved this wrong. When I say you, I mean the youngsters of the day. In fact, in the lighter vein, I keep saying, typically when I see in our office itself, youngsters like you dropping by, we say, hey, have they lost their way? Because, you are typically expecting a farmer, or you say a middle-aged man who is an industrialist and perhaps wants to learn more about international trade and exports. No. Today, it's the startups, it is the colleges, the academia, the students. I find students also being part of our export management training programs. Of course, some of them may be having a family business, they want to grow more. But then there are many of you from the academia, professors calling me saying, hey, I have left this job, I want to get into exports, directly into exports. They were never into manufacturing, they want to get into exports. So be it. That's the order of the day, and you'll see why. Now, if you look at this slide itself, it talks about the organization I represent, and we've been here for the past so many years and registered under the society's registration under the aegis of the Department of Industries and Commerce as a non-profit organization. And these are our core functions. I'm sure you're able to relate to a typical export promotion center. And as I was saying, not many states in the country have an exclusive nodal agency. Yes, exports do happen, and states do have, it's like one vertical or one line in the bureaucracy would be handling exports as well. That is the kind of scenario across the country, but very few states do have something specific for the exports. So we conduct a lot of these training programs, we conduct B2B meets, foreign delegation visits, and our core being facilitation, addressal of exporter grievances. We are a conduit, we are a catalyst, we are a bridge between industry, academia, government. We try to put it across, because as I told you, exports is a central government subject, but both central and state work in tandem. And now with this Atmanirbhar call and with Vanijya Saptah that we celebrated last August, there's been a big clarion call across the country, the nook and corner of the country, for growing exports. And this is becoming a thriving sector, thriving business. Capacity building programs, I would say, are right on top of our radar, because we want each one of you to excel. We want each one of you to grow, become entrepreneurs. And as Dr. Rekha Sethi rightly pointed out in the opening remarks, we want to be job creators, generators of employment, right? Give employment to millions of people in this country. That should be our objective. So in that process, we have one beautiful scheme called Market Development Assistance. You can see one of those bullets out there.
Prabha, we cannot see the slides. Right. It's on the first slide again.
Yeah, it is on about the organization, right?
It's on the first slide, and you try to do a show, then we can see that.
It's on the show itself. Is it saying about the organization?
No. It's on the first slide again. I think the same problem is happening. Okay, now we can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's because I have come out of the slideshow.
Okay.
Is that okay? You're able to see it?
This is okay. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So the Market Development Assistance is a scheme that VTPC implements as part of its industrial policy. So the new industrial policy was announced last year in 2020. So 20 to 25, the industrial policy has a chapter on export promotion, and the incentives, initiatives and concessions announced there will be implemented by our department. So MDA is one popular scheme wherein, people want to go abroad on a foreign delegation, or it could be that chambers of commerce take delegations abroad, or it could be an entrepreneur himself or herself wants to attend one particular, let's say, trade fair or exhibition abroad, which you believe is something so crucial it can impact exports. Then you could give in writing and make a proposal, submit it to our department, and we in turn would get it approved from the Commissioner of Industries. If the program or exhibition is indeed so significant, it gets approved in the calendar. MDA, it's called the MDA calendar. So this scheme provides you with a minimum of 75% of reimbursement on your airfare. How lovely is this? Because and you have two categories. You have Latin American countries category and rest of the world category. Whichever category it be, minimum 75% of the airfare is reimbursed. Of course, there are always riders to every geo, that you will understand, because we do not want people to misuse it. So we all comply with that, and then we can avail. We also have a DA component there in Market Development Assistance. And a lot of exporters, my dear friends, tell us that the shortcut way for success in export markets is through this route. Try to avail an MDA, go abroad, scout markets, come back home rich with your booty. Of course, there are programs to assist you, as I have mentioned there. There's a beautiful and incisive export management training program, which is actually a 6 days program that was pre-COVID, but now due to COVID, it became a 5 days program, because the last about 1 day, wherein we used to take on a live visit to the ports, airports, or container depot for a hands-on feel of exporting, is not happening right now, but I think it's a matter of time that we're going to resume it. In fact, after 2 years, the first offline export management training program did happen in our training hall in Kasturba Road out here in Bangalore. And I think that's the way forward, and we'll be taking on more and more of these. A wonderful program wherein, right from the basic steps of how to get into export, the first steps, to the finer nuances of what are the customs procedures, what are the various documentations, what are the various contracts. Because as you know, exporting or international trade is all about n number of contracts. It could be a marine, it could be a shipping contract, it could be an RBI regulation on one hand, and then you have a lot of these councils with whom you have to work, export promotion councils, which is pertaining to your particular sector. We need to work with them. And then you have a lot of these associations and chambers with whom we work, because they are also a catalyst, as I said. Then how do we do the costing and pricing of the product as an exporter? We have sessions lined up like that, packed over the 5 days. We have 20 plus sessions. It's 24 to be precise, wherein we also have case studies of successful exporters coming in and telling you, hey, we also thought that exporting is a rocket science. While it indeed is, but there are facilitators, there are agencies to make your work easier. And this is a beautiful and lucrative business. Also because Karnataka, I'm really happy and proud to state this always, is a state which has given several firsts to this nation in every sphere of the economy, I would say, with conviction. You name the sphere, we are there. Number 1 in precision tools, number 1 in silk, number 1 in coffee production, leaders in engineering like automobile. We are the aerospace hub of the country. We are the 4th largest technology cluster in the world. And as recent as a week ago, not sure how many of you are aware, a big pat on the back for Karnataka is that from the 9th position, we have scaled up to the 3rd position in the Export Preparedness Index announced by Niti Aayog. And well, that's been really a very pepping up point because we have surpassed Tamil Nadu as well. So that's the pat on the back, and also the fact that we have been rated as the most innovative state in the country under the major states category. And when you come to IP tools also, a couple of IP tools we have been rated fantastic, but then there have been a bit of concerns as far as the filing of industrial design as an IP and filing of trademarks is concerned, which according to me is relatively easier, where students, academia, and entrepreneurs to be can look at these aspects also, these tools also, and you can leverage them to your benefit. It's not just about patents alone that builds IP, it's about a gamut of them. So we take you through all those finer nuances across our various capacity building programs. We also have IPR programs. We have a cell housed here. And through that, I'm conducting this particular initiative as well. We also have a signature event called Annual Export Awards for Excellence. So how do we reward our meritorious exporters who have been toiling, day in and day out, burning the midnight oil and doing wonders for not just themselves, but to the state? So that is a CM's program, a signature event every year where we recognize meritorious exporters through the annual export awards, which is mandated for VTPC to implement. And of course, in the introduction, as it was mentioned, Karnataka is the first and only state so far in the country to have announced a one of its kind geographical indications policy to protect the traditional legacies of the artisans and the grassroots of the state. And this is one area, one IP tool, which I always believe is less spoken about in forums. And this is one IP which you can look at to see as to how we all together can make it a thriving one. In fact, geographical indications is called as the sleeping beauty of intellectual property. It's a sleeping beauty which has to be woken up because there is tremendous potential out there. And that's how we all can add to the story of the artisans in the state. And that's where the true success lies. So we also drive IP initiatives, as I said, a lot of IP cells. We have been facilitating the launch of IP cells. But again, let me put one rider here. I, for one, as a facilitator, would not like to encourage IP cells for the sake of launching it. There are many colleges in town where, it's just for the sake of the pressure of NAC accreditation, or, there is a particular constraint that you have to launch it and show it in your registers. Sorry, guys, I'm not the right person and we are not the right guys here. We mean business. We just don't want to do a fancy ribbon cutting and all of that and forget either the cell or you. We want IP to grow. We want innovation to be nurtured. So please come and talk to us if indeed you're interested to take the initiative forward in right earnest, and we will be very happy to facilitate the launch of an IP cell. These are a couple of other, important schemes and initiatives, I would say, in recent times are being spoken of more in our organization. One is this TIES, Trade Infrastructure for Export Scheme. It was earlier called as ASIDE, ASIDE. Basically, this scheme, my dear friends, is a central government scheme, and VTPC is a monitoring agency in the state for implementation. And this scheme is aligned to the export mandate. And you'll be happy to know that even academic institutions have availed this scheme. Like, for instance, University of Agricultural Sciences based out of Dharwad. They had set up a testing laboratory for water, I guess, and they had availed this particular scheme because it was aligned to the export mandate. Similarly, JSS in town out here in Bangalore, they had availed the scheme for setting up a jewelry center of excellence in Bangalore. So if there is an export mandate, then it doesn't matter whether you are an academia or a startup, whichever category, but then there has to be a mandate of export infrastructure creation. Similarly, now the champion services sector, you must have heard about how our Honorable Prime Minister has been talking about transforming ourselves into a $5 trillion economy very soon. And that is where the role of services sector in general and champion service sector in particular is going to play a very, very vital role. And let me tell you the interesting part. While the government identified some 24 services sector, and of that shortlisted 12 as key ones at the moment, Government of Karnataka aligned itself to the center, and we identified and shortlisted 6 champion services in the first leg of our journey, which we want to promote, and we have drawn up action plans for all these sectors. So what are these sectors? You'll be very happy to know one of them is education services. Yes, education services right on top. That is one of the sectors we are looking at to promote in Karnataka. Lot of potential. Then we're also talking about health and wellness, media and entertainment, logistics and transport, where VTPC is the nodal agency again for implementation from the state. Then you have remittances and immigration. So we have identified 6 of these sectors for development in the state in the first leg of our journey. And we're working with sister concerns, various departments in the state to see as to how the action plans mooted in each of the study reports are being implemented. And of course, you've heard about PM Gati Shakti and all of that. So integrated development of the logistics sector is key at the moment, because that is the lifeline and that is at the heart of any kind of, whether manufacturing activity, exports, or any sector. Logistics is the key essence and the lifeline. And under the Atmanirbhar initiatives, the talks that we are doing and doing the rounds across the nook and corner of the country, developing districts as export hubs, the ODOP, which I have forgotten to mention here, that is, one district, one program, one policy and one program product, one district, one product, where states have identified in their respective districts products which are going to be of high potential, which can be nurtured. Like, for instance, this was inspired actually by Uttar Pradesh. As you know, they have a large number of districts, and each of those districts, they have identified potential products, and they in fact have policies also for each of those products. So in a similar way, inspired by that, the entire country is working with its own districts. Like Karnataka is working for each of its 30 districts. We've identified potential products, and we are trying to promote them. And also there is this initiative called Establishing Export Development Centers, EDCs. So now developing district as export hubs talks about a basket of goods. It needn't necessarily be only industrial goods. It can be a mix of industry, it can be agriculture, various others. Whereas ODOP identifies one single one which has potential, which can be scaled up. Now, what is EDC? Export Development Centers is, we have identified a couple of districts, 5 of them in Karnataka, where we're trying to say that as we work on developing districts as export hubs, and as we do the ODOP, we also need e-commerce conduits. We need enablement of e-commerce for our artisans, for our exporters, for MSMEs, and that is where the EDCs are going to play a big role. And Karnataka has also signed up MOUs. Government of Karnataka has signed MOUs with Amazon, Flipkart, and others to take this forward. Quickly, a rundown on the major exports and imports of the state. As it's very clear here, our strengths, as I was mentioning to you, electronics and software services, number 1 there. We contribute almost 40% to software services exports, IT exports. We're number 1 in the country. And of course, aerospace and defense, as I said, precision engineering, number 1, ready-made garments and silk, coffee and processed cashew, rose onions, that's another big sector for us. And incidentally, Bangalore rose onion is also 100% export-oriented unit and a geographical indication as well. Pharmaceuticals, very strong out there, a robust presence of petroleum products. Agarbattis is another very, very high potential. And in fact, I just concluded a 5 days program on promotion of exports of handicrafts with Brazil. So we are trying to explore with Latin American countries handicraft export promotion, and I'm happy to tell you, incidentally, slightly by design and by default, the program became more skewed to geographical indications. So I had 95% of exporters representing the GI space in these 5 days, Brazil program that we had. It was a virtual global seller meet that I had coordinated, and it was very, very encouraging, because I found 99.9% of the feedback saying that it sounds extremely positive, and there indeed is a big market for handicrafts for one. That's just a case in point. Major imports here you have seen crude petroleum, electronics and telecom, medical instruments, all of these, you can see life-saving drugs, some of these are the major imports. So as you can see, processed cashew is what we export, but we are also importing raw cashew. Now, if you look at this slide, export performance of Karnataka, so you can also just recall what I said at the beginning, that, we've been ranked 3rd in the export preparedness index, which the country, is talking about right now. So if you look at the comparison also, you can see that currently the figure that we have is the April to December figure, and we have been ranked 4th in merchandise exports, and we rank after Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and this is our contribution. And services sector export, we've been always the leader, contributing around 40%, as I said, 41. And overall, we are ranked 1st in the overall exports. When you combine both, merchandise and services, we are ranked number 1. But then, we don't want to be complacent, because we want to really reach and scale up to the top as far as the merchandise sector is concerned. Now, coming to the GI bit, Farah, can I do the slideshow and just make an attempt? Just let me know if this moves. I think already Farah has given you a good flavor about what is a GI. So as I've put out here, it's basically a sign or an indication, my dear friends, which identifies goods across these segments. So when you say a geographical indication, it's specific to a territory, to a region. Many people ask me, give me a simple example, Dharwad Peda, for example, which incidentally was not just Karnataka's first GI in the foodstuff category, but also the country's first GI in the foodstuff category. So Dharwad Peda is something specific, local to the Dharwad region. The peda has got its flavor and unique flavor and quality because of the specific climate, the temperature, the soil, the milk that is used, the processes that go into it. It is specific to that region. So I cannot make a Dharwad peda sitting here in Bangalore, or let's say sitting in Delhi, and then claim it to be a Dharwad peda. I can always say it's a peda, but I cannot stake a claim to the nomenclature saying that it is a Dharwad peda indeed. No. That is the speciality of the geographical indications, which the name itself suggests to you. It's specifically territorial, regional. And agriculture, handicraft, natural goods, manufactured food, these are the 5 categories under which GIs are classified. Somebody asked me software. No, that is not the classification. It's only classified for these categories, right? Specific to that region. Now, already Farah has taken you through all this. We have, the Geographical Indication Goods Registration Protection Act 1999, which is an incisive act which lays down the rules of the game as far as the GIs is concerned. Friends, can you see this slide? Has it moved? Can someone confirm?
It's visible, Prabha.
So no issues, right? Okay.
Yeah, as such, we can see that.
Okay, so while Farah had put out those wonderful pictures of the global canvas, right, and she also spoke about cheese GIs, just as a point of recall. So these are some of the popular, GIs worldwide. And in fact, I must tell you that in the case of Pingu peaches, it is billed as one of the classic cases of how the GI has been exploited to a commercial use. I mean, that's how it has to be. Like when Farah said Darjeeling tea, that was the first GI of the country. And that is a beautiful story in the Indian case, which has entered the menu charts everywhere in the world. That is how the cascading effect should happen. GI should not remain with us while it is territorial or agreed, but it has to be taken across. We have to create a noise, reverberate it, cascade it all across. And Darjeeling tea, according to me, is the finest classic example of how a GI has been marketed, exploited, not just in your country, but worldwide. Go any part of the world or go anywhere, Darjeeling tea, you will find it in the menu charts. That's how each and every GI has to scale up. And these are some of the GIs which Swiss watches, and who doesn't know about it, Colombia, this Colombian coffee, which Farah also mentioned, Georgian wine. Now, The Indian GI logo, you can see that orange and green. After we unfurled the national IP policy for the first time in the country in 2016, it was like a broad framework and template. And there, a chapter spoke about GI as well, and subsequently CPAM, which is the organization under the DPIIT, took the lead to unfurl this wonderful GI logo, which the GI artisans can use on their respective products and benchmark it in global markets. So as on date, countrywide, we have 417, all India, 417 GIs. As I speak to you today, the count is 417 across all these categories. So look at the Indian landscape. Just put out a few pictures of some of these GIs. Can you see this? You have on the extreme right corner, the Rasagulla, which was, a heated topic between West
Prabha, we
Bengal
can't
and...
see the next slide. Actually, it's still on the GI.
Now, okay, now...
Yeah, now it's moving, yeah.
Right, so that means my slideshow doesn't work. Sorry about that. So if you can see on the extreme right side, the Rasgulla, which was a heated topic, and then there was a lot of confusion. People said, did Orissa get it? Or did West Bengal get it? And some people said, no, Orissa lost it. My dear friends, let me clarify this to you. Both the states got a tag for Rasgulla, but for the different varieties. So West Bengal Rasgulla is a different one. They got a tag for their variety. Orissa, typically, all of you know, in the legendary Jagannath Puri temple, they have been serving it since ages, and that was the fight all about. Orissa felt that West Bengal is trying to, transgress, and they are getting the tag. But the whole story was, Orissa, yes, had their own Rasgulla, which is of a different color, all of you know. It's slightly brownish. So they also got a tag for their Rasgulla. But this is West Bengal's Rasgulla. And similarly, you have, Madhubani paintings, and you can see I have put out a Fulkari, embroidery as well. And you can see Pashmina shawls, and you have this filigree of silver filigree work of Karimnagar. You have Alfonsa mangoes. And that pineapple is a typical Kerala variety. It is, it has a particular name. It's called Vadakudam pineapple. And you also have under the manufactured goods category, the Coimbatore wet grinder. Then, of course, the Mysore traditional paintings. You can see basmati rice. And while that is an orange, there are a couple of oranges which have GI tags in the country. You have Nagpur orange on one hand. You have Coorg orange. And I think there are a couple of others also. Now, if you look at Karnataka's GI basket, a quick sneak peek. So let's take heart. We are the leaders in the country with the maximum number of GI tags. Actually, if you go by the count, it is called as 46, but with all humility, I would like to call it as 42. The GI registry has said it is 46. You can go back and check. That's because 4 GI logos also have been given the status of a GI. Because the registry believes that, it's quite an effort for a GI community to first of all nurture their own, be it handicraft or any crop, whichever category it falls into. So the logos also in the old regime were being given the status of a GI, and we are at 46, number 1 leaders in the country. So you can see maximum we have in the agri segment, 22 of them. The last crop that was registered as a GI of Karnataka just before COVID pandemic was the Gulbarga Tur Dal. So specifically because of the texture, the sheen, the luster, the typical characteristics, it got the GI tag. It's not easy to get a GI tag. There is a lot to it that meets the eye, and that would be a separate session. You have 16 under the handicraft segment, and I'm sure when I take you through the next beautiful collage, you'll be able to say, hey, I know all of these, but did we know that those are special IPRs of the state called as GIs? That's the point I want all of you to take away. Take away home today is that these are the wonderful IPRs of Karnataka for one, and India. And this is what each of us, you and me, need to patronize. That's the message I want you to take across. Manufactured goods, we have 3, and foodstuffs only 1, as I told you. And these are the GI logos, which were granted. Mysore silk applied, Naval Gundaris, beautiful carpet weaves, wonderful. I have been to that cluster. Karnataka bronze and Ganjifa cards of Mysore. Now this collage, which actually I'm tempted to put a slide, but I'm not sure again whether you can see. One of you can please confirm to me whether you can see this slide when I put it up like this. Are you
Yes,
able to
madam.
see it full screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone?
Yes.
Can you please
Yes,
confirm?
ma'am.
Yes, wonderful. Look at, yeah, thank you. Now look at, I'm actually tempted to go to the right side, top corner right side, and let me talk about the 5 GI coffees. So you'll be very happy, my dear friends, and proud to know that Karnataka is the GI coffee hub of India. The coffee board has registered 7 GI varieties in the country. Of the 7, 5 are from Karnataka. So we are, I told you, the #1 in coffee production. Now I'm telling you that Karnataka is the GI coffee hub of the country. And you can look at the variety of coffees out there. All of you know about this. You know Baba Budangiri's Arabica coffee. You know Chikmagalur Arabica. You know Coorg Arabica, Monsoon Malabar, both the Arabica and Robusta variety. But perhaps you and me didn't know that it is a special item of the state. I want to emphasize this. It's a special item because it's an IP and it's a under IP. It is a geographical indication tool. It's a geographical product. Similarly, the Coorg green cardamom. Interestingly, friends, most of these GIs, when we talk about the pros and cons, one of the blip side is that we have not yet as a country recognized for the export sector with HS what is called as harmonized system of codes for the GI products. So when I say this, what I mean is, let's say you pick up the sari, what I have put out there, let's say Ilkal sari or Valkalguru saris, they will be exported as under the saris category. But there is no separate HS code, which is very, very important international classification, which identifies the product from a particular region or country. But Coorg green cardamom is one of the very few GIs in Karnataka, and also Kolhapuri chappals. As I recall, there are only 2 or 3 GIs in Karnataka, which include Coorg green and Kolhapuri chappals, which have an exclusive HS code. So that's something very important. You can find out from the export statistics exactly what was the contribution of Coorg green or let's say Kolhapuri. But when you look at the others, you will not be able to actually quantify them because they will go under the common general categories, under saris, under fruits, like that. Now, coffees we spoke. We come to the left side, come to the saris of Karnataka. So to my women fraternity and women friends out there, and to all you youngsters and all of you there, whenever, let's say, your mom, your sister, and your friends drape these saris, then you must actually pat them and cheer them up. Hey, you are wearing an IPR of this country. And today, for the fervor of it, I have draped a Udupi sari, which I love to patronize, my dear friends. Udupi saris, which is a GI sari. And that is a story of how one lone, what I would call as a curator and revivalist of GI, one lone person is trying to, catapult the whole story there. From the waning artisans who are running away. Youngsters are not coming back to the weave because they don't find it attractive. But there is this lady and her team in Udupi who's trying to revive this particular sector. And that is one special reason to my women friends and to all you, men folks out there, people, please patronize Udupi saris. We don't want it to languish. We want the GI to thrive. And it's a wonderful one because, apart from the fact that it has its own charm and characteristics, which goes with a GI, the speciality is that some natural ingredients have gone into the making of it. For example, coconut shells are used for, lighting the fire and all of that. They're using manual processes. So you can imagine the pollution also is less, it's eco-friendly, environment-friendly. And then, the palm trees bark and, some of these, the leaves are used as a brush for making the fine kind of a run over the sari so that, the texture doesn't break. So they have used all the natural ingredients in the making of the sari. So how special is this? How, what kind of ingenuity has gone into it? How creative is this? We have to reward and recognize. Similarly, the Ilkal saris. There is this riverlet called Ilkal, and the waters of that river are used for processing, bleaching, dyeing, and all that. Specific to that region. The way it has been done, everything is very, very unique. Molkal Muru saris in Chitradurga district. It's a pure silk one. It has a zari border, contrast and all that. Every GI you pick up, and Mysore silk, who doesn't know about it? I'm sure it's every woman's dream to have it sooner or later in the wardrobe, right? So Mysore silk was the first GI sari of Karnataka registered. And when you go to the Dharwad region side, Navalgund in particular, you'll find those beautiful carpets being woven. And these are some of the crafts which I would say are not high visible. And this is where all of us, you and me, need to patronize the community, need to popularize, need to help them in different ways. Now look at some of these agri GIs I have put up. Bananas, if you see, there are two actually. You can see the Nanjangud variety, you can see Kamlapur red banana. Nanjangud banana is again a story of how academic institutions have played an important role. There was a problem with that particular crop. It was, infested with pesticides and a lot of problems. It was in the red. And it was an academic institute like the GKVK, which did a turnaround. And then, we had a success story about Nanjangud. So that's how you can see academia in different ways are part of this GI journey. Bangalore blue grapes, very high in medicinal content. Devanhalli pomelo, who doesn't know about it? Coorg orange, when you go towards Mysore side and go to Coorg, you'll find those lovely sweet oranges. Those are the Coorg oranges. Of course, Karnataka doesn't have the mango varieties registered as fruits, but there is one pickle variety, the Appimidi mango, which has been registered as a GI crop. Bangalore rose onion, I told you, is a 100% export-oriented unit as well. And then in the Udupi region, you have this Udupi Mattugula brinjal and Udupi jasmine, which are also very, very popular GI crops of Karnataka. And friends, this Areca nut, Supari, got a new name because Sitsi Supari was registered as a GI of Karnataka. This was also pretty much just before the pandemic. Mysore beetle leaf, Malabar pepper. Of course, Malabar pepper shares the, wherever we have border sharing cases, it is possible that states will share the GI. Fair enough. Like Kolhapuri chappal also, we have both Karnataka and Maharashtra having the joint tag. Look at the wonderful Mallige varieties, jasmine varieties, 3 of them. Mysore Mallige, Hadgali, Hadgali in the Ballari region, Udupi Mallige. And one thing that I want to again, put on record here is Hadgali Mallige is one case, a successful case, I would say, although nothing has happened concrete, I would call it as a breakthrough because it was a college in Ballari and a government college in Ballari, first grade college. During the peak pandemic time, the professor got in touch with me saying that he has heard about IP initiatives from government of Karnataka and wanted to learn more as to how the GI bit can be taken forward. And he specifically mentioned to me that Hadgali Mallige in his region is something which his college would be interested to nurture. Then the first question I told him is, while I would be excited as well, it was peak pandemic time. And then how do we mobilize the farmers? But what he said was, why don't you help me in this authorized user drive that you people have been doing a lot these days? You've heard that the part B of the register, which was empty, is happening right now. And, people are being registered as artisans are being registered as authorized users. That is when, we facilitated him. And during peak pandemic, he started the exercise and then took it through when it was the second or third wave, I think. He tried to complete that exercise with the farmers. And because of that, professor, I received 95 applications for Hadgali Mallige to be registered as authorized users of Karnataka when there was 0 right then in the account. A huge pat on the back to that professor based out of Ballari. This is how academic institutions can play, small yet very significant role, in the GI journey. It's very simple. How to go about the AU registration, just don't worry. We are the nodal agency and I have been facilitating this particular initiative day in and day out. Very simple forms. No rocket science, no Brahma Vidya, as they say. You can just pick it up in 5 minutes if you talk to me after this program. It's as simple as that. Basic checklist. Who's eligible, what's to be done, what are the documentations I would require, simple as that. And you could facilitate all other GIs also, not just one particular GI. And especially in your region, you can try to identify also if there are new ones which have a potential for GI filing. So Kinhar toys, another interesting case. You have 2 toys in the toy segment. You have Channapatna toys on one hand, Ramnagara.
Excuse me, Prabha, can you Can you go to the next slide because it's not visible now?
Now,
Yeah, now
now,
it's okay. Yeah.
yes, yes. So now Kinhal and Channapatna toys, both in the toys segment, wonderful ones. Channapatna toys, of course, people are more familiar with, but Kinhal toys also, the beauty is it's more than 600 years old history. It, dates back to before the Vijayanagara, dynasty itself. And not just that, a lot of natural ingredients have gone into the making of those wonderful dolls, be it a palanquin or different kinds of, fruit baskets, variety of them. In fact, the bark of the tamarind tree is used as a glue. So we are not using anything which is unnatural. It's natural ingredients from the tree. And they're not using acrylic colors. They're using natural colors, watercolors. And that's the reason, we need to promote, patronize, help the community to flourish. All these wonderful GIs. Of course, Sandur Lambani, as you can see there, I would call that as, considerably a very successful case of GIs under the handicraft segment in Karnataka. They're doing pretty well in the Ballari region, and they have a variety, assortment of articles because it's about embroidery on a lot of items, be it men's shirts, key rings, chains, chandeliers, saris, a lot of them, they weave all these typical cowries, shells are all used. And the Banjara, the Lambani tribe, the women are employed in this. And interestingly, another interesting point is that this particular GI was not registered by a government department. It was registered by an NGO. So it is not a rule that GIs have to be registered by the government departments alone, although all over India and Karnataka also no exception. By default, I would say that many GIs have been registered by the government departments. But the trend now is, let us encourage NGOs. Let us encourage the farmer community, with a representative like a cooperative society or the artisan societies. They should come forward and file the GIs, and government should only be a catalyst in the journey. Each one of us have to take on the onus of nurturing this craft, because government is saddled with n number of priorities and things, right? But we are always there to facilitate. We are always there to, take it forward and provide you with schemes, incentives, handhold you. So remember this, next time when we talk about a new GI filing, think as to how an artisan community can form a cooperative society or an NGO, and then the filing can happen with the help of the government bodies. I already told you about Kolhapuri chappals, and then you have this languishing craft, Ganjifa cards, a beautiful one, which has a rich history, but it has very few artists right now, and we are in the process of identifying if we have left out a lot of them, and we are, constantly engaging with them, seeing how we can try our best to give them, some kind of a leg up in their story and their journey. You all know this more than 100-year-old history, Mysore sandal soap. The only soap which we say has, that sandalwood oil. And, a rich history, Mysore sandalwood oil, sandal soap, Mysore agarbatti, Mysore rosewood. In fact, Mysore is the GI hub for Karnataka. There are more than 9 GIs which are based out of Mysore and adjoining regions. And of course, adjoining regions, we add it's more. So 9 GIs from the Mysore region alone. So that makes Mysore the hub of GIs in Karnataka. And of course, the GI logos, as you already saw. So some of the initiatives in the government space, I already told you, we announced an exclusive GI policy, a very, very simple one, my dear friends. It's all about promoting, marketing, branding, showcasing. I mean, these are the watchwords or keywords in our policy. And VTPC has been nominated as the nodal agency from the state of Karnataka for promoting the GIs. Some of the key highlights. Of course, as a regular initiative, we used to visit the clusters for the capacity building programs, but then because of the COVID, it had come to a standstill, but a matter of time when we would be resuming and we'll be on the field visiting all the clusters and conducting the capacity building programs. An interesting part is that, some of these bullets, like capacity building, authorized users, and impact study facilitation, all that what I have put in that slide, according to me, are all interrelated. Interrelated because we have conducted incisive studies of a couple of GIs, like for instance, Mysore Ganjifa cards, traditional paintings, And then, in Udupi region, we did a study for Mysore, Udupi jasmine and Udupi Mattugula brinjal. And interestingly, even in that impact study, an academic institution was involved. With such passion, the diagnostic study was conducted. Similarly, when you talk of Bidri ware in the Bidar region, it was an academic institute which actually camped in Bidar, conducted the incisive studies, and one of the key outcomes, I would say, a fantastic outcome for Karnataka was that they took the initiative and we facilitated them for the authorized user drive. And because of that academic institute, today I can proudly say that Karnataka has 165 authorized users for Bidri ware when there was 0 2 to 3 years back. This is the power of academia, my dear friends. This is how you can contribute to something which is so thriving, which is so attractive, and which warrants our attention. So some of these we undertook the studies, and authorized users is something like this, my dear friends. Let's say, you want to become an entrepreneur next and want to set up a mobile factory, mobile cell factory, or you want to sell, let us say, the AC remote. Now, you and me as an entrepreneur can jolly well become one. We can go set up shop. All we have to do is go to the ROC, meet up with the right guys, take a license, company incorporation, and typical standard things which you and me know. You can become an entrepreneur for all these products, any of these. But if you and me say, hey, I want to be a producer of, let us say, Chanapatna toys, or I want to become a weaver of ilkal sari, then I'm sorry, you're transgressing on the IPR zone. So if you want to become an entrepreneur for products which are in the IP space, people, let me alert you, you have to take, in general parlance, you will call it a license, right? So here we call it as authorized user registration. So you want to trade or you want to produce one of these GI goods or crops, you can do that. But first, you have to become an authorized user. And that is what I was trying to drive home, that actually from a base of just 7 or 9, way back, 3 years back, we took this very aggressively. And today I'm proud to tell you that Karnataka has 414 authorized users spread across various handicrafts, agriculture, manufacturing, all those classifications. And it has been possible not just by one facilitator or one organization here that I represent, but it has been made possible because of people like you. The common man, the academia, the startups, the people with passion have all contributed to this very extremely dynamic space. And that's the way forward. Digital platform, yes, we are talking about that. We have announced that in our policy as well, as you can see. So in that context is what I was telling you, that we have inked up with leading players like Amazon, Flipkart, and we're trying to see as to how we can promote and enable the artisans on these forums. And of course, we are also trying to identify potential GIs for filing, which I'll take you through in another slide. I already told you about this. So today, okay, I forgot, it's not 417, it's 431. Yes, as on day before, 431, we have registered. So our numbers are increasing. And in fact, right now in my pipeline funnel, I have sent across almost approximately 200 or 250 applications spread across various crafts and crops which are in the process of being scrutinized by the GI registry. Some of them you can see I've put here. Of course, there are more. This is a constant one. So one, request to each one of you is, if you think this is, something IP, technical, it's not my space, no. Simple way in which you and me can contribute is, you come to know that somebody is, let's say, because that has happened to me as well. Today, because I'm handling GIs, I can talk a bit about it. But, I also was not aware. When I was not aware, I knew my friends selling ilkal sari. I knew a friend who was selling Chanapatna toys, but I never knew that I had to guide them. But today, you and me are equipped. We know that if somebody is producing one of the GI goods, or if somebody claims that he or she is a trader of one of the GI goods, it is our responsibility to ask them, hey, are you an authorized user? If not, do not worry. There is an organization in town we can guide you to that, and they'll help you, facilitate you, and you can get your license in general parlance. So you can spread word. You can see if people are producing or trading. Check with them. Have the rights, because see, this is under the GI Act, which is by law. And we as a culture also don't want to do the wrong things. So even on a philosophical note, or be it on a practical note, we have to remember, even as a culture that we profess, we do not want to get into infringements. We don't want to trespass and infringe others' property, right? So we always should remember this in mind. We should respect others' intellectual creativity and creation, and we should follow the rules of the game. Good. Tomorrow you want to trade in Kolhapuri chappals? Very happy. Please come. We'll facilitate how you have to become a trader. You think that your uncle is actually selling Mysore rosewood inlay? Please check with him. Is he an authorized user? Right? So that is the important aspect. You can become an entrepreneur for any of these, but just follow the rules of the game. Now, this is something interesting we are working on, government initiatives. So what we are saying is, how do we showcase GI artisans, the GI goods to the world? Friends, do you know that Goa, right now, as on date, Goa has been the first state in the country and the only state so far which has set up an exclusive GI pavilion at airport. And do you know how many GIs they have? Well, when actually they set up the GI pavilion airport in Goa, just 2 years back, they had only one GI registered. Only one. It was Feni. Now I understand their count has gone up to 2, right? But with one GI alone, how did they set up a complete GI pavilion at airport? So the idea there was, let's not worry whether I have n number of GIs. Goa, is a tour where you have n number of tourist footfalls, being an international kind of a tourist destination. They cashed in on that, and they set up a GI pavilion inviting GI artisans from across the country to set up shop. How lovely is this, my dear friends? And Karnataka, here we are right now, leaders in the space with 42 GI products. We are trying since the past 2 years, and because of even with COVID, we've had a lot of virtual meetings. We are talking about a massive space in Kempegowda International Airport, and 2 hotspots we have identified, both in the domestic and international pavilion terminals, where we are going to house a huge space for showcasing GIs of the state. This is one way, so next time, maybe after a couple of months, when you fly in and out of this wonderful state that I represent today, then you'll be able to see this beautiful expanse, an exclusive Karnataka pavilion, which will house n number of GIs, and of course, other rich handicrafts and other traditional legacies that Karnataka is known for. I've already told you, cluster awareness, we do this, but because of COVID, I've not been on the move, but very quickly, a matter of time, that we are going to jump into the field now, and we'll be meeting up with all of you in your respective districts. I've already done a rundown for this. We've conducted, and as I said, many academic institutes have been part of this journey. Is a loud call that I want to again and again reiterate in ballpark, underline it, that you can be a part of this journey. Interesting part is this. I was talking to you about the market development assistance that VTPC has, right? So we also have this MDA scheme announced in the GI policy as well, where we are saying that, are you a GI artisan? So how do I identify whether you are one? I would look at my list of authorized users that are registered. And if you apply and you are indeed an authorized user of GI, then you can avail the GI Pavilion programs. So we have a very popular flagship program of VTPC called India International Trade Fair, which happens at Pragati Maidan every year, where every state in the country participates, and Karnataka also has its rich pavilion, which showcases not just the GIs, but the rich repository of handicrafts, manufactured goods from across the state. But consciously, as a very concerted effort, we have been trying for the past 3 years in particular, to identify GI artisans and give them exclusive stalls also. It's like a GI spotlight, GI Bay in the IITF, and the more the merry. In fact, there are many interesting cases of how GI artists and artisans have met me and they had a fear, hey, it's for 14 days. Do we have that much of supply? Will we be able to sail through? But then after they went there, they said for whatever it is worth, it's not the point as to how much you sold, how much you got, what is the booty you got. More than that, the artists and artisans were enriched with experience. They said, we have now really understood what an international trade fair means. What is the pulse of the audience? Because the footfalls are high, representing international, the national, domestic, state, local, everywhere. People throng in there. So people got to understand the pulse. What is the customized way the customer wants? So it's been pretty much of an experience. It's been a rich experience for the artists, artisans, exporters, the budding ones, potential ones, every one of them. And we are trying our best to encourage this particular segment of the society. I've already spoken about this, e-commerce enablement. These are all interlinked. We have discussed this as well. So we are taking this in right earnest. 30 district action plans have been formulated by Visvesvaraya Trade Promotion Center, aligning to the Atmanirbhar mandate, and implementation has begun in the respective districts. This is another slide which I want to draw your attention to. And why is it that I have put one in green and one in red? Work in progress with regard to textile weaves. Yes, we are working on filing of 2 GIs from Karnataka. One is the Patteda Anchu, which is a textile weave. It's a sari, which is considered to be more than 200 years old, a very ancient one. It has a history as to how a particular community in Karnataka was patronizing it, and in a particular temple, and this sari used to be given by the parents to the bride. So it is there, it may sound like a traditional knowledge, which is an IP, but this is a GI emanating from that particular region, which we are trying to explore, filing as a GI product. It took us more than a year because of the COVID to get through this and put it across together with the help again of an academic institute. We have been with them in this, together working in this space. And Patteda Anchu, right now, we had meetings with the Commissioner for Textiles, and there are a couple of areas which we feel has to be holistically included, and work is in progress, and in a matter of time when we are going to file this GI, and let's hope, fingers crossed, that Karnataka should shortly get another GI filing. The one in red that I've highlighted, Melkote Panche, is something which is like I'm upset about, and it is here I would seek your support. I throw this open to you now. We have been working on Melkote Panche to file this as a GI with the Academic Institute. But somewhere, it is very important in the GI journey that the documentation and historical evidence is the first and foremost factor which the examiner of GI would look into. Incidentally, I hail from Hyderabad. In that I had my education there. I lived there for many years. And when I came to know, this is when I learned GI, because I did not know what IPR was, what GI was, right? Only after I took this initiative, I started picking up jargon. When I learned about GI, and then I learned that Hyderabad biryani, which according to me is one of the most signature items, food products in Hyderabad, did not get a GI tag. And I was very upset about it. Because, yes, I come from Hyderabad. I had my studies there. So it is like all India, we have that passion for all the states. So I was upset that, hey, how come everybody knows Hyderabad biryani is so popular, but why did it not get a GI tag? My dear friends, one particular NGO has tried to file GI for this food category, but they were not successful. And it falls under the abandoned category. There are categories again in filing, right? So one is pending category, abandoned category, one will be withdrawn category, and one will be registered. This is under abandoned. So I was curious to know what happened. And what happened is this. While you and me may say that Hyderabad biryani, pearls, and all of these are so popular, signature items. And we would want to go to the Paradise Biryani while at Hyderabad to go and pick up a grab there. But the documentation was extremely weak. The particular NGO that filed was not able to put together hard copies of the document, evidence of the documentation, giving the history behind it. So this is one weak link which has happened with Melkote Panchi as well, where while some people claim that there are artisans still weaving it, then show them to me, my dear friends. I'll be very happy. I'll be happy to work with you. We are not able to get hold of a bunch of artisans who can say that, yes, we are still weaving it. Let's talk up. Let's talk and try to draft this GI application. No, I have not been successful. We as an organization have not been successful in getting hold of a good number. Let's say at least half a dozen with whom we can start talking about Melkote Panchi, its rich history. We know its rich history, but where is the evidence? Where are the weavers? Without any weaver, without any farmer, without any artisan, what is the GI we are talking about? So everything should have backups of all these important aspects, which are also important riders when you're going to file a GI. So Melkote Panchi right now to me will remain in red for a while, in the red highlight, meaning we have not closed it. We are very much open if people join hands and say that let's work together, let's dig out all the repository of information, put it out together, and let's try to file a GI for Karnataka if it really warrants and if it really is a fact that artisans do exist. There are more. You can also identify in your region if you feel there are a couple of products, be it in the agri or handicrafts. If you feel that there is something which has a potential, you can talk to us. We can see how we can take it forward. But sometimes there is always a tendency to confuse ourselves between a GI and a plant variety. You know that a plant variety also is an intellectual property tool, right? And GI is another intellectual property. But there is a line of difference. So sometimes what happens, people say that a particular plant, hey, is that a GI? See, that could not be a GI perhaps. It could go in for a plant variety filing, which is also a GI. So do not get bogged down with the nomenclature in the first place. If it's any IP, happy about it. Let's try to nurture it. And it's not about numbers game also, my dear friends. Let me tell you very clearly. While we claim to be number one, leaders with 42 GI tags, let me honestly and humbly submit to you, we are not excited because we feel we have more onus. What is it, if you ask me, we have done to nurture the 42 GIs? I'm sorry, I will not be able to give you concrete answers for each of the GI products. So the real success is not about numbers. The real success is about, are we doing something concrete for the fraternity? And in this journey, as I told you, a loud call once again, invite each one of you to be part of this in your own way. And how can you do this? The last slide sums it all. Best thing which you and me, our children, grandchildren, everyone, can do is promote GIs as mementos in various platforms. I can challenge if anyone says that, no, this is not my cup of tea. I don't agree. And you sure don't agree too. This is the best thing we can do, each one of us. So how have we done this? Of late, what has happened is a lot of government programs, typically we love giving those scarves and ties, let me confess. But no, once we have understood that we are talking GI and we want to promote them and we see some potential there, we are trying to facilitate and promote the GI products. So the mementos for any program, let's say a CM program or a higher officials program or any department, the government departments are also looking up to GI products. That's a very good way to promote that particular fraternity, whichever GI it is. And all of you, my dear young friends, I know you've been actually, and the millennials of the day in particular, you would be always e-enabled, would be ordering something on Flipkart, on Amazon. So my question is, can we also look at GI products? Your friend's birthday is coming up perhaps, or somebody's wedding anniversary is coming perhaps. Can we look at GI gifts also? So this is how you and me can look at, promoting GIs and then promoting authorized user drive All that you have to do is give them a lead. Tell people, hey, go and register yourself. And you can support us in, conducting SWOT analysis, studies of GI clusters, and the new GI filings is something. And more than anything, social media, the power of social media. I'm sure my young friends in particular love to talk on the wall on Facebook or put up a tweet or perhaps on a serious note on LinkedIn and many other fora, right? So can we also talk GI and walk GI and leverage the social media platform for GI promotion? I'm pretty sure each one of us in this August audience gathered here in our own way. I may not be tech savvy, right? I may be challenged, but can I tell my son at least to take it forward? Or can I tell my colleague who may be more tech savvy to take it forward and put out a tweet? So there are ways of how you can syndicate the work, how each one can, as I keep saying, cascading effect, how we can have a ripple effect in the society. Word, leads beget leads. Word of mouth is more than enough. Just let's try in our own way. So let us promote, encourage, patronize our local artisans. As I always say, they are our pride indeed, and they mirror our rich heritage and culture. So friends, what are we waiting for? On that note, thank you so much for your time. We'll be happy to answer and take questions. Thank you so much. I'm not sure whether we can do justice in the time allotted. However, in case you want any incisive sessions on specific topics of IP tools, be it trademarks, copyrights, GIs, any of these, you can always be in touch with us, and you can also inform your colleges in your neighborhood and fraternity. We'll be happy to join hands and work together. Thank you so much, my dear friends, for your time. And this is our coordinates. We have shifted and back to our own space at our own building, bang next to Visvesvaraya Museum. So if you happen to come to Bangalore, I'm sure many of my young friends in particular would not like to miss Visvesvaraya Museum, one of its kind. So you can, once you come there, you can see that VTPC is just the adjacent building. It's in fact flanked by Yes Bank and museum on either side, on an iconic spot diagonally opposite to UB City. So welcome each one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
It was really wonderful and informative session.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine. And I hope we'll do some justice. And if there are questions for Farah and me, we'll be happy to answer.
So if anyone has any questions, I'm sure ma'am will be pleased to answer that. Any questions?
Yes, I have a doubt, ma'am.
Yes.
So
Please go ahead.
yeah, farmers actually, they'll give so many crops that they'll cultivate so many products, right, ma'am? For example, turmeric. They should take patent from any organization, even the farmers.
No. So the question is like, for example, you're saying if it's a turmeric, right, and they are selling. No. What I meant was if there is any product which has an intellectual property. So in this case, as I was talking about GI, I mentioned GI, but yes, all other IP tools also. For instance, let me give you the best example. As I was talking about a cell phone, I think Farah will add to that. Like as I was telling you, a cell phone, let's say you are setting up a shop. So when there are components, right, inside the cell phone, a number of components. It could be a tool, a particular, part. It could be the touch screen, or it could be the ringtone. So you have to ensure as an entrepreneur whether there are already existing patents over, in this case, patents. Okay, IP is a basket, as I told you. So in this case, you have to check out whether for that particular part that you're using, somebody already has a patent, for example, or does somebody have an industrial design. We'll have to do our due diligence and ensure that we do not infringe on others' intellectual property. So in case, let us say, one of these components or one of these features of the cell phone that you want to set shop, somebody already has an IP, let's say. Do not get disheartened. I would say your work is half done. All you have to do is just go up to that particular inventor who has a patent, let us say, over that particular component. You have to sit with that person, and in legal and technical parlance, we will call it as commercial licensing, and there are different models. Or you have to just engage into a contract, and you have to tell that, hey, can I use this part? So for using that particular component, you have to enter into an agreement. And because you have to recognize that this particular component is already, has somebody has an IP over it. So when you say turmeric, if that particular turmeric is freely available in nature and there is, let us say, no GI tag to it, or there is no plant variety tag to it, which is an IP, you can jolly well start producing or trading. But the moment you come to know that a particular turmeric variety, let us say in Karnataka, has got a tag. And let's say, just for a hypothetical example, Kolar turmeric, you come out, or Kolar tomato. Tomatoes are so popular. And if suppose tomorrow it becomes a GI, then somebody who's producing or trading in that has to be careful. They can either produce or trade only if they get the license, which in this case I would call as authorized user registration. But if it were a patent or trademark, then accordingly the synonyms, the nomenclature goes. If it's a trademark, we say you get your logo registered. If it's a copyright, we say that you get your copyright registered. So depending on the IP, you will have to register it so that nobody infringes yours and you don't infringe others, right? So in the case of turmeric, in fact, I'm told that in Chamarajanagar, I guess, there are a lot of this, a lot of production of turmeric happens and people are selling it in different forms. So there is no bar there because that particular turmeric does not have an IP or a GI tag. You are free to do it. Only when there is an IP involved, you have to be on high alert that you cannot use it unless.
What is the product for which you are taking an IP, or what is it that you're trying to protect? Is it free from infringement, like you are not stepping on somebody's toes? So those are the three questions. The first thing is, you said turmeric, so which is an agricultural product. If it is produced by a particular company, the company would have branded it. Okay, so the brand is with the company, and you can go off and buy the seeds or the rhizomes from a dealer, and you can propagate the crop. When you pay the amount there, you'll be paying for whatever effort the breeder has used. Okay, so for agricultural products, you have a seed, so there's a seed act. For GIs, we have a GI act. For plant variety protection, we have the Plant Variety Protection Act. And these are the three things which you can use for an agricultural crop. Okay, and if you are a farmer and you are working on a turmeric crop and you generate something which is specifically different from whatever else is out there, and you breed it for say 10 or 20 years, you create a new variety, you have the right to go under the PPV-FRA Act and register it under the authority and say, this particular breed of turmeric, I have named it so and so, and can you please register it for me? They will go through the criteria and you can register. Okay, if it has been developed by a public funded institution, please understand, a university which is funded by a government of India is a public funded university or institution. If it develops something, it is for the public good. Okay, if it's a private company, it will have its own brand. Okay, a plant variety plus a brand, two things will be protecting that agricultural product. So again, think, what is the product, what are the protections it has, whether it is a private or a public institution, and you can work on that. If you develop something which is a plant variety, you can go and register it as a farmer. I hope I answered the questions. Any other questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? Professors, students? You could also write in to us with specific queries and we'll facilitate it.
Any other doubts or queries, participants? Okay, ma'am, I guess no one has doubts. So thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful and interesting topic and talk. It was really very beneficial and advantageous to us. Now I request Evangeline Reshma from 2nd BGB for vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to everybody present here. It is such an honor for me to get the opportunity to thank you all dignitaries. On behalf of Science Department, SBMJC, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Farah Diba ma'am, Senior IP Consultant, and Prabhavati Rao ma'am, Facilitator IP Initiative, speakers of this webinar for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. I also extend my gratitude to Vishweshwaraya Trade Promotion Center to take our time from their busy schedule to grace the event.
You can ask your questions over email. Thank you.
So thank you everyone for your active participation in this seminar. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot. So feedback form will be sent in group and also been mentioned in chat box. You can please fill the feedback form to get your e-certificates. And I thank one and all attended this seminar. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful talk and session. Thank you so much.